What if becoming a millionaire has nothing to do with chasing money, and everything to do with becoming someone who no longer needs to chase? You see, the great illusion most people live under is this, that wealth is something external, earned only through constant effort and striving. But what if all along you were meant to be the wealth, not pursue it? What if your millionaire phase isn't coming later, but is being invited the moment you accept it as your current identity? Neville Goddard didn't teach wishful thinking. He revealed a powerful truth. Few dare to believe that the world outside is merely a mirror of the world within. And in the world within, wealth is not gained. It is assumed. This video will challenge everything you've been taught about success. Because while most people are working harder, striving more, and waiting longer, the secret Neville left behind is this. Abundance is not a reward for work. It's a reflection of your self-concept. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Neville taught that every man lives from a state. Not in a state, but from it. Which means if you are not living from the state of already being wealthy, no amount of external effort will change your condition permanently. The outer world bends to the assumption you hold, not to your labor or your longing. So today you will learn how to step into your millionaire phase, not by hustle, not by waiting, but by being. You will understand how identity creates experience, and how to use Neville's most powerful methods to reprogram your inner world to reflect a life of ease, wealth, and calm certainty. You'll discover how the law of assumption works as the foundation of real transformation, how state akin to sleep allows you to impress wealth upon your subconscious, and how to let go of the emotional bondage that's been silently repelling money from your life. But more than techniques, you're going to grasp something most manifesting teachers miss. True wealth begins when the need for wealth dies. That's where your millionaire phase truly begins, when you stop reaching and start assuming. And here's the twist. Most people block their own financial breakthrough because they continue to think of wealth as something out there. The moment you say, I want, you confirm that you do not have. And what you are conscious of not having, you continue to not have. This is the cycle that keeps millions poor, not for lack of ambition, but for lack of inner transformation. In this video, we will break that cycle. You'll hear insights rarely discussed from Neville's original lectures, how everyday people use these principles to attract unexplainable financial shifts, not because they worked harder, but because they entered the state of already being the person who has it. Neville often said, change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. That's not metaphor. That's a formula. And today you'll learn how to apply it to one of the most emotionally charged subjects on earth, money. We'll go deep into the concept of living in the end, where you no longer act from hope, but from realization, from completion. And that's where miracles begin, when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and rest in it as if it were already true. This isn't a video about mindset tricks or false positivity. This is about reprogramming your being at the root, about shifting from a person who seeks wealth to a person who quietly radiates it through belief, posture, expectation, and identity. And if you've ever wondered why some people seem to receive wealth effortlessly while others struggle endlessly, stay with us, because the answer isn't found in luck or talent. It's found in the states they occupy, in the imaginal acts they repeat, in the feelings they refuse to betray. This is not magic. This is law. And once you understand it, you cannot unsee it. This message is not for everyone. It's not for those who still believe the outer world is the cause. It's not for those who want a quick fix while staying the same inside. This is for you, the one who's ready to change not just your circumstances, but your self-concept. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to stop trying and start receiving, how to stop begging reality to deliver what your inner world hasn't accepted. You'll know how to enter the state of wealth and live from it, calmly, confidently, consistently. You'll also learn how to use Neville's SATS technique, not as a trick, but as a sacred moment of internal alignment. You'll see how the drowsy state can become the most fertile soil for planting the assumption of a millionaire life. And you'll discover why letting go of effort is not laziness, it's faith. And let me say this now. If you apply what you learned today, not just hear it, but apply it, you will look back and see this moment as the turning point. The moment you stopped trying to become and simply became. So stay with us until the end. Don't skip, don't rush. Because somewhere in the next few minutes, a line, a concept, or a story might change your perspective forever. This is Ignis Mindset, where we don't teach you how to chase dreams. We teach you how to live them. Subscribe now for weekly insights into the deepest, most powerful teachings of Neville Goddard, translated, clarified, and distilled into wisdom you can actually live. No fluff, no hype, just truth. Let's begin. Before we talk about strategies or techniques to attract wealth, we must first understand what Neville Goddard taught about the origin of riches. Wealth in its truest form is not something external that you must chase. It is not a prize that life hands out to a lucky few. Wealth is a state of being. It begins not in the bank, but in the mind. And unless you assume the state of already being wealthy, no outer action will bring lasting abundance. You are what you assume you are, Neville said, and that is no metaphor. It is a creative law. The world around you, your conditions, your finances, your relationships, are nothing more than reflections of your inner assumptions. If you assume poverty, no amount of work can protect you from lack. If you assume wealth, even in the absence of evidence, life begins to mirror that state back to you. There is a great illusion in this world that money is earned through struggle and endless labor. That belief is deeply rooted in the assumption, I must work hard because I don't have enough. But in this very assumption, you reinforce your lack. Every action taken from the state of not having strengthens the belief that you are poor. This is the paradox. You strive, you hustle, you grind, yet you remain energetically anchored in the identity of someone who lacks. Neville shattered that illusion. He declared, change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. He didn't say, change the world to feel wealthy. He said, change yourself, not superficially, but from the core. Shift your self-concept. The one who lives as if he already possesses great riches will, in time, see life unfold to match that identity. Imagine a man who walks through life knowing, not hoping, but knowing he is financially abundant. He doesn't check his bank account with anxiety. He doesn't beg the world for opportunities. He acts from a quiet certainty. That man, regardless of the outer appearance today, is on the path to visible wealth. Because his inner state is fixed, his reality must eventually yield. Neville taught that imagination is the only creative force in the universe. What you imagine yourself to be, and what you persist in imagining, becomes your reality. If you repeatedly see yourself as wealthy, act in small, natural ways that affirm it, and refuse to entertain the idea of lack, you are stepping into the state of wealth. And it is the state that produces the result, not the other way around. Too many people try to get money without ever changing their self-concept. They might gain for a moment, but they return to lack because their inner state never shifted. Neville warned against this. He said man must enter the state of the thing desired. It is not about earning $1 million. It is about becoming the kind of person in consciousness who naturally lives with wealth. Living from the end, a phrase Neville used often, means thinking from the place where your desire is already fulfilled. It's not daydreaming about becoming wealthy someday. It's assuming that you already are. Even when reality seems to say otherwise, you persist in the feeling of wealth. You make decisions with that inner posture. You don't buy things to prove it. You simply carry the feeling. You walk differently. You speak differently. You choose differently, not out of fantasy, but out of assumption. And this assumption has power beyond logic. The moment you stop trying to become rich and start identifying as someone who already is, something begins to shift. Your thoughts change, your emotions settle. You no longer chase money, you radiate the frequency of wealth. You become a magnet, not a beggar. There is a silence in true abundance. No panic, no obsession, no resistance. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't even have to convince yourself because you already know. That inner knowing, Neville said, is the secret. It's not a loud affirmation or 1,000 visualizations. It's the still, simple acceptance. I am wealthy now. That acceptance becomes your anchor. And from that anchor, actions flow, not desperate ones, but inspired ones. The world begins to present you with bridges of incidents, unexpected meetings, chance opportunities, even setbacks that redirect you toward greater gain. All of it orchestrated by the assumption you hold. But remember, this process is sabotaged the moment you go back to wanting. The moment you say, I hope I'll be rich someday. You have left the state of being and returned to the state of lack. Desire is not the issue. It's the persistence of desire without assumption that keeps it unrealized. So how do you maintain this state? You refuse to argue with reality. You stop measuring progress by what the outside world shows. You return again and again to the assumption, I am. Not I want to be, not I will be, but I am. And when the mind wants to panic, you return to stillness. Neville's own students proved this countless times. Those who left jobs they hated and imagined working in a higher place did so and saw it come to pass. Those who were broke, living paycheck to paycheck, began to assume prosperity and within months found doors opening that they never could have planned. Not because they manipulated life, but because they assumed a new identity and trusted its unfoldment. The greatest secret Neville gave us was not how to get things, it was how to become the kind of person for whom good things naturally flow. That is what makes wealth permanent. Not money in your pocket, but identity in your mind. The riches may fade, but the assumption remains, and with it the power to restore it all. This is the difference between the one who constantly struggles and the one who simply receives. One tries to be wealthy, the other assumes he already is. One asks for miracles, the other becomes the miracle. The path to becoming a millionaire in Neville's teaching is not a chase, it is a shift, a change in state, a deep, unshakable assumption that says, this is who I am. And when that belief takes root, the outer world bends, not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed it. You allowed wealth to meet the version of you who no longer doubted it. And that is where it all begins. The law of assumption is one of Neville Goddard's most transformative teachings. It is not mystical, complicated, or exclusive. It is simple, direct, and available to everyone. At its heart, it states this: whatever you assume to be true about yourself, about life, about what is possible, will harden into fact. Your world reflects your assumptions, not your hopes, not your desires, not even your prayers if they contradict your inner state. What you accept inwardly as true becomes your experience outwardly. Neville made this clear when he said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That one sentence contains the formula for changing your life. Not just by thinking about what you want, but by feeling that it's already yours. The word assume is powerful here. It's not passive. It means to take it on as reality, to wear the state as if it's already been given to you. You don't beg for it. You don't wait for permission. You claim it inwardly, fully and naturally. When it comes to wealth, this teaching is especially radical. Most people see money as something distant, something you acquire through years of effort, clever strategy, or external help. But according to Neville, financial abundance is not a matter of working harder. It's a matter of assuming the state of already being wealthy. And once that state is accepted as natural within, it begins to reflect without. This does not mean pretending or faking. It's not about saying, I'm rich, while feeling poor and frustrated. The law of assumption requires inner alignment. It demands that you move into the feeling of already having what you desire, not as a performance, but as a shift in self-concept. This means thinking, acting, and even reacting as someone who knows abundance is theirs. The moment you stop seeing yourself as someone trying to attract money and begin living from the belief that you are already financially secure, everything changes. Your decisions change. Your responses to challenges change. The energy you carry in conversations, in choices, in movement begins to match the inner claim. You no longer operate from lack. You no longer seek validation. You move with quiet certainty. Neville taught that your imagination is God in action. It creates through assumption. When you imagine yourself in a state and assume it is done, the creative power within you begins to express that reality. To be conscious of being rich, he said, is to be rich, not because the outer world has already changed, but because your inner reality has shifted. And it is that inner shift that causes the outer change. The law of assumption is not about daydreaming. It is about conviction. It requires persistence, especially when the outer world shows no evidence yet. But that is the test. Will you believe in the unseen? Will you trust the feeling over the facts? Neville constantly reminded his students that facts follow feelings, not the other way around. You don't wait for evidence to feel abundant. You feel abundant and the evidence begins to appear. One of the reasons people fail with this law is that they confuse effort with assumption. They try to force results through repeated actions or affirmations. But deep inside, they still assume they're broke or unlucky or stuck. They speak abundance with their lips, but carry poverty in their hearts. The law does not respond to words, it responds to states. It mirrors back the version of yourself you are being, and being is deeper than thinking. It is identity. So how do you assume wealth when the world around you screams the opposite? You start by withdrawing your attention from what is. You stop letting your bank balance define your worth. You stop interpreting delays as denials. You stop looking for signs and start becoming the sign. In imagination, you construct the feeling of already having what you want, not just for a few minutes, but repeatedly, until it becomes familiar, until it feels like home. You begin to speak as if it's done, not to convince others, but because it feels natural to you. You walk with the posture of someone who is already taken care of. You eliminate language that contradicts your assumption. You stop saying, I can't afford that, or maybe one day, or it's too expensive. Instead, you speak from calm confidence. It's already mine. Things always work in my favor. I always have more than enough. The law of assumption requires you to take responsibility for your reality. Not blame, not guilt, but power. You accept that your inner world creates your outer experience and that nothing changes until you change. It's not about controlling every thought, but about dominating your self-concept. You stay loyal to the state of wealth. You refuse to mentally return to lack. Even when doubts arise, you acknowledge them, but you don't dwell there. You return to the state. You assume again. Neville often used the example of planting seeds. Assumption is the seed. You drop it into the fertile soil of imagination. You do not dig it up the next day to see if it's working. You let it take root. You trust the process. Your job is not to figure out how it will happen. Your job is to persist in the assumption that it already has. You will begin to notice subtle shifts. Opportunities, people, ideas, and circumstances will begin to align, not by accident, but by law. You'll realize that wealth does not come to those who chase it. It comes to those who embody it. The state of wealth begins to call forth the money, not the other way around. This law doesn't require external proof. In fact, it defies the logic of the world. But Neville said it plainly. Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment. That is the invitation, to dare to assume what others fear to imagine, to live from the end, quietly, boldly, without apology. Wealth is not out there. It is a reflection of who you are being. The law of assumption is the bridge between your desire and its fulfillment. It does not ask you to struggle. It asks you to choose, to step into the version of you who already lives in abundance, and to stay there even when your senses beg you to doubt. That is how the law of assumption works. Not through hope, not through hustle, but through being, through feeling, through claiming. And as Neville promised, once the assumption is fully accepted, nothing can stop its expression. The world will yield, reality will bend, and you will look around and see only the reflection of your inner wealth. The millionaire identity isn't something you earn, it's something you assume. Neville Goddard made it clear, manifestation doesn't begin with things. It begins with identity. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are conscious of being. The most powerful shift a person can make is not from poverty to wealth, but from I want to I am. When you stop trying to get money and instead become the person who naturally receives wealth, the whole world changes its response to you. It begins to confirm what you believe about yourself. That is the law. The moment you internalize that shift, I am a person who is abundant, who manages wealth well, who is generous, who is calm around money, you begin to walk differently. You speak with more assurance. You make decisions with clarity. You expect good outcomes because you no longer see yourself as someone who struggles or lacks. You're not hoping for $1 million. You're identifying as someone who belongs to that life already. This is not imagination for fantasy's sake. It is identity engineering. It's choosing to mentally inhabit a reality so deeply that it rewires how you show up in the world. That's how the world reflects back wealth, not by what you chase, but by who you are being. Every day offers the opportunity to reinforce that identity. And Neville taught several practices that anchor this new state into your consciousness. The first is how you speak. Your words must match the reality you're assuming. Speak as though the wealth already belongs to you, not with arrogance, but with peace. You're not boasting, you're confirming. I always have more than enough. Money comes to me in expected and unexpected ways. My life is filled with ease and prosperity. These statements are not wishful, they're formative. You are shaping your self-concept with language, and your world mirrors your concept of self. The second practice is visualization, especially in the drowsy state Neville called SATS, state akin to sleep. In that relaxed condition, your conscious resistance fades, and your subconscious is most open to suggestion. It's here that you see yourself living your ideal life, not watching from the outside, but experiencing it from within. Visualize a scene that implies the wealth is already yours. Perhaps it's checking your bank account and feeling a deep sense of calm. Perhaps it's walking into a beautiful home and knowing it's fully paid for. Perhaps it's a close friend congratulating you. Whatever it is, make it real by entering into the feeling of it. SATS isn't about visual clarity, it's about emotional reality. You want to feel the naturalness of the scene. If it feels normal and true, the seed is planted. Third, resist the urge to react to outer appearances. This is one of the highest forms of mastery. Even when the outer world still looks unchanged, even if the bank account says otherwise, you must remain true to the inner state. Neville taught that the outer world is a shadow of past assumptions. It is not permanent. It is not cause. It is effect. The true cause is internal. So you must give more weight to your inner knowing than to temporary appearances. This doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you redefine it. The true reality is the one you've accepted in consciousness. That is what you nurture. That is what you protect. And above all, maintain emotional steadiness. Don't allow your state to be tossed around by numbers or circumstances. Faith is not loud. It is not frantic. It is quiet and powerful. It walks without proof because it knows what is coming is already done in the unseen. Emotional peace is the signature of true abundance. When you no longer chase, no longer strive, no longer fear, you begin to dwell in the frequency of what you desire. Joy, gratitude, and stillness are signs that you're in alignment. They don't come after manifestation. They are the environment in which manifestation occurs. You stop asking, when will it come? And start affirming, it's already mine. That shift dissolves time. It makes you available to receive because you are no longer broadcasting lack. Neville often reminded his students, your desire is not separate from you. The moment you feel it as true, it is yours. Creation is finished. You're not changing the future. You're selecting it. You're entering into a state where the thing you want is already present. You're not going to become a millionaire. You're stepping into it now by belief, by identity, by internal transformation. This isn't a someday goal. It's a present tense decision, a daily embodiment of who you truly are. When you look in the mirror, don't see someone waiting. See someone ready, someone aligned, someone who already holds the key. Stop trying to get it, and you'll finally have it. Because the trying comes from a place of not having, but the being comes from a place of possession. And the world can only give you what you are being. So ask yourself, what part of this message resonated most deeply with you? Are you ready to stop chasing and start living as if it's already yours? Then walk in that truth. Speak from that truth. Feel from that truth. And if this message ignited something within you, like the video, comment your favorite insight and subscribe to Ignis Mindset for more empowering teachings like this. Share it with someone who's still stuck in the mindset of the chase, because sometimes one shift in identity is all it takes to change everything.